A Worn Path.
And Myth Production.
It was December, a bright frozen day in the early morning. Far out in the country there was an old Negro woman with her head tied in a red rag, coming along a path through the pine woods. Her name was Phoenix Jackson. She was very old and small, and she walked slowly in the dark pine shadows, moving a little from side to side in her steps with the balanced heaviness and lightness of a pendulum in a grandfather clock. She carried a thin, small cane made from an umbrella, and with this she kept tapping the frozen earth in front of her.
She wore a dark striped dress reaching down to her shoe tops, and an equally long apron of bleached sugar stacks, with a full pocket all neat and tidy. But every time she took a step, she might have fallen over her shoelaces, which dragged from her unlaced shoes. She looked straight ahead. Her eyes were blue with age.
Now and then there was a quivering in the thicket. Old Phoenix said, "Out of my way, all you foxes, owls, beetles, jackrabbits, coons, and wild animals! Keep out from under these feet, little Bob Whites! Keep the big wild hog out of my path! Don't let none of those come running my direction! I got a long way!"
The path ran up the hill.
"Seem like there is chains about my feet. Time I get this far,"
she said, in the voice of argument old people kept to use with themselves.
"Something always take a hold of me up on this hill. Please I should stay."
After she got to the top, she turned and gave a full, severe look behind her where she had come up. "Up through the pines," she said at length. "Now down through oaks." Her eyes opened widest, and she stared down gently, but before she got to the bottom of the hill, a bush caught her dress. Finally, trembling all over, she stood free and after a moment dared to stoop up for her cane.
"I'm so high!"
she cried.
"The time getting all gone here."
At the foot of this hill was a place where a log was laid across the creek. "Now comes the trial," says Phoenix. Putting her right foot out, she mounted the log and shut her eyes, lifting her skirt, leveled her cane fiercely before her like a festival figure in some parade, began to march across, then she opened her eyes and was safe on the other side.
I wasn't as old as I thought.
But she sat down to rest. She spread her skirt on the bank around her and folded her hands over her knees. Up above her was a tree and a pearly cloud of mistletoe. So she left that tree and had to go through a barbed wire fence. There she had to creep and crawl, spreading her knees and stretching her fingers like a baby trying to climb the steps. Then there was something tall, black, and shiny there, moving before her. At first she took it for a man. It could have been a dancing man in a field. She said with laughter,
"My senses is gone. I too old. I the oldest people I ever know. Dance, old scarecrow,"
she said,
"while I dancing with you."
Woof!
A black dog with a long tongue came up out of the weeds by the ditch. She was meditating and was not ready, and when he came at her, she only hit him a little with her cane. Over she went into the ditch like a little puff of milkweed. A white man finally came along and found her, a hunter, a young man, with his dog on a chain. "Well, Granny," he laughed, "what are you doing there?"
"Lying on my back like a June bug, waiting to be turned over, mister,"
she said, reaching up her hand. He lifted her up, gave her a swing in the air, and set her down. "Anything broken, Granny?"
"No, sir, them old dead weeds is springy enough,"
said Phoenix when she had got her breath.
"I thank you for your trouble."
"Where do you live, Granny?" he asked while the two dogs were growling at each other.
"Away back yonder, sir, behind the ridge. You can't even see it from here."
"On your way home?"
"No, sir, I going to town."
That's way too far." "Now you go on home, Granny,"
"I bound to go to town, mister.
said Phoenix.
The time come around."
He gave another laugh, filling with the whole landscape. "I know you old colored people wouldn't miss going to town to see Santa Claus. How old are you, Granny?" he was saying.
"There is no telling, mister.
She said.
No telling."
"Doesn't this gun scare you?" he said, still pointing it.
No, sir, I seen plenty go off closer by in my day, and for less than what I done,
she said, holding utterly still. He smiled and shouldered the gun. Well, Granny, he said, you must be 100 years old and scared of nothing. I'd give you a dime if I had any money with me, but you take my advice and stay home and nothing will happen to you.
Moving slowly and from side to side, she went into the big building and into a tower steps, where she walked up and around until her feet knew to stop. She entered a door, and there she saw nailed upon the wall the document that had been stamped with the gold seal and framed in the gold frame, which matched the dream that was hung up in her head.
You're happy, she said. A charity case, I suppose, said an attendant who sat at a desk before her. The old woman sat down bolt upright in the chair. Now how is the boy? Asked the nurse. Old Phoenix did not speak. I said, how is the boy? But Phoenix only waited and stared straight ahead. Her face was very solemn and withdrawal into rigidity. Is his throat any better? Asked the nurse. Aunt Phoenix, don't you hear me? Is your grandson's throat any better since the last time you came for the medicine?
my grandson, it was my memory had left me. There I sat and forgot why I made my long trip.
Forgot? The nurse frowned. After you came so far? Throat never heals, does it?
Yes, swallowed lie. When was it? January 2-3 years ago?
She brought her a bottle of medicine. Charity, she said, making a check mark in the book.
5 pennies is a nickel.
Here's a nickel.
I go into the store and buy my child a little windmill they sells, made out of paper. He going to find it hard to believe there's such thing in the world. I'll march myself back where he waiting, holding it straight up in his hand.
She lifted her free hand, gave a little nod, turned around and walked out of the doctor's office. Then her slow step began on the stairs, going down.
Okay.
Alfie.
Special guest, Bill.
Starring Bill and Alfie.
And Alfie.
The guy that lives behind my house and my cat that he stole from me.
It's not your cat.
It's definitely my cat.
Okay.
Bye.
Wait, no.
What's going on?
I don't know. It's so bright.
Make it